So before I talk about the book, I want to talk for a second about happiness, because today's theme is the theme of happiness. And like every good teenager, I spend a fair amount of time on social media. And I have a friend with whom I often have really interesting conversation. He has a PhD in psychology, so he says really interesting things that I don't always understand. And and he's completely obsessed with happiness. So this is an actual conversation we've had, where he was talking to me about a book he read, and I asked him, "Why are you so obsessed with happiness?" And he told me something really interesting. He said, "We're really bad at knowing what makes us happy, and there is kind of a folly in how we live our lives in pursuit of something that we do not know how to define." And the irony that we were having this conversation on Facebook, which is the unhappiest place on earth, was not lost on me. I mean, on Facebook, everybody has lives like this. I mean, people, you see loving couples, and 2 days later you hear that they are having a divorce. You see these vacations, and then you hear they lost their houses. So Facebook is a facade, is where we go to feel, where we go and we feel that we have to be as happy as everybody else. So when the theme of today, when Simon invited me to come and speak, and I read that the theme of today was architecting happiness, I was a little, meh, what can I say about that? Because we've had this conversation a million times. We talk about designing experiences. Now, my business card says that I'm user experience director, so I look after the experience design team. But can we design experiences? Can we design happiness? I don't think we can. But it's a conversation we can have afterward. So the thing is, though, that through our work, we can evoke emotions. We cannot manufacture it, but we can trigger those emotions on people. And that's why adverts like the John Lewis's Monty the Penguin make us go like, oh, we all feel so warm and fuzzy. And we cry when we read books and we watch movies. Like, I recently watched The Fault in Our Stars with my daughters, and we were all in tears. There is something else that makes me cry. The interesting thing is, though, that it makes me cry always at a different point in time. And it is this book. That's my kitchen table. That's the copy of this book. And the fact that it makes me cry at different points in time, at different parts in the narrative, is because I relate to the content in different ways depending on my context. So if the author had written the book with the goal of evoking one emotion in the average reader, which is me, he would have miserably failed, because I don't cry at predictable times. I don't get moved. I don't find meaning at predictable times. It is just in relation to the world I live in. I've seen that not very many people have read the book. So I'll give you a little bit of context. This is the author. The author he's a French guy. He had a really interesting life. He was a pilot. He became a pilot because he developed this enormous passion for flying machines, and eventually he managed to sneak his way into an aviation school, and he started delivering mail, and then became a war pilot. And so he writes the novel in the first voice, and he talks about how he got stranded on a mail delivery mission in the Sahara Desert. He had an engine failure, and while he's trying to fix his plane and worrying about life and death because he doesn't have enough water, puff, there is this little guy that falls down from the sky, and not just from any sky, from asteroid B6112, which is really important because we relate to informations when they are measurable. So asteroid B6112 sounds like something really official. So the Little Prince apparently says that he has left his asteroid following a flock of seagulls after he had a fight with a rose. And the book develops around the travels of the Little Prince, first across 6 planets, and then after he falls to Earth. The really interesting thing about the book is that the book is considered primarily a book for children. and it's considered a hymn to creativity. And the author sets the stage using these two designs. You know, the first design, he claims that he had started drawing when he was a kid, and because adults did not understand that the first design was not a hat, but in fact it was a boa who had just swallowed the elephant, and he was fascinated by the jungle, then he had to design drawing number 2. But the drawings weren't serious enough. So he decided to dedicate his life to more serious things that other people could relate to. And curiosity and creativity are extremely important. I had a similar event happening to me where I was kicked out of religion classes because I drew God as a kid in 2nd grade. So we can relate to the importance of creativity, the importance of being understood. But the point of the book to me is not just creativity, it's about human condition. And as designers, human condition and our relationship with the environments that we inhabit is extremely important. We, you know, as much as we hail technology, this computer, this clicker, you know, our phones, our iPads, as extremely important, as goals, as the tools that we create, as the future, we tend to forget, we get so excited about the possibilities that we tend to forget the humans that then have to use them. So this expression is an expression that we've all had. And we've all had them, and we're people that actually make these kind of things. We make these kind of tools. Imagine all the other peoples that do not understand, like, you know, Dan was saying, what an information architect is. Or people that look at a wireframe that must die and think that that's the finished design for a website. They have no, you know, they have really no chance. So in the book, the little prince visits 6 planets. They all have numbers, which I will spare you. And the characteristic of these people that he meets, this character that he meets, is that they're very different, but they're all devoid of emotions. They're not people. They're all men who have been reduced to functions. He meets a geographer, he meets a businessman, he meets a lamplighter, and they're their profession, they're their occupation, they're a goal, a task, a feature. They're not human beings. And so when we talk about architecting happiness, designing emotion, designing for emotion, how these things relate, the thing is that technology has advanced so much that we get really excited, as I was saying, about all the things that we do. We can pack feature into things. We can design, you know, we say we design for emotions. This is going to make me feel manly. I'm not even a man, but if I have these, oh my God, the things that I can do, the things that I can build, is it going to make everybody feel the same way? I don't know. I mean, some people get really moved by an image like this. And this is why it gets used to influence emotion. On me, yes, it's a cute puppy. I'm not a dog person. This stirs me a lot more. I like big structures that are in, you know, in water. They scare the hell out of me, but they're really, really exciting. So as designers, we have the choice between doing everything that we can do because we can do it just because we can, or creating tools that may not trigger emotions, but favor outcomes. This Swiss Army knife may not me go, oh, like the big one, but it allows me to do the things that we want to do. Our job is to create meaning, to give choices to people. I can choose to use the bottle opener or the corkscrew, but I can perform several tasks. It's just about giving people the right tool at the right time. So if we go back to the book, it becomes really interesting in terms of choices and in terms of option, the role of the lamplighter. The lamplighter lives on one of these numbered planets, and his job is very simple actually. The purpose of his life is pretty clear. He has to turn on the lamp at dusk so people can see, and turn it off at dawn so that he can go to rest and there's no need for the light. The thing is that as time goes by, the planet spins faster and faster. And the poor lamplighter all he does, second in, second out, or minute in, minute out, is turning it on, putting it off, turning it on, putting it off. The Little Prince in the book is really interesting. He's a really interesting character because he never answers questions, so his answers are always indirect. But he does ask a lot of questions, and so he asks the lamplighter, who is sort of the only humanoid person function he needs on this planet. He asks the lamplighter, why don't you stop? Why don't you do something different? And the lamplighter, who is trapped in his duty, he has this really well-developed sense of duty, follows orders. He doesn't see that there are alternatives. He doesn't see that he has a choice. And sometimes, you know, when I go and I do usability testing, when I go and talk to stakeholders about projects, I feel that they're a little bit like the lamplighters. They don't know that there are different ways of doing things. They've always done things the same way. And I would argue that this lack of education is excusable when we begin a project. It's not as excusable when we're halfway through it. Our role is to educate, as much as it is to give options and create meanings and order and environments where the users can operate. It's also about educating our clients into what they can do differently, what the possibilities are. If the choices aren't visible, it is our fault. So, you know, everybody loves gov.uk. I use it all the time. I moved here from across the world last year, so I've used it a lot. And it is a good site. It is hailed as the epitome of functionalities. Well, until last week, there was an article on Thursday or Friday about all the failures of gov.uk. The truth is that gov.uk does a really good job at letting you search for information and at telling you where you are. However, the context that we need to process that information, to derive meaning, sometimes isn't there. Now, you know the saying that in life there are only two inevitabilities, death and taxes. In the States, this, which is where I lived the last 15 years, that's even more true. I mean, there is no escaping the IRS. You may prolong your life, you may get yourself frozen or cloned, but you've got to pay taxes. So when I moved to the UK, for me, it was about, oh my God, what do I need to do? Taxes, right? And of course, I went to gov.uk and I hear of the self-assessment. Do I need to do the self-assessment? I don't know. You know, and much as I'm older generation, I'm of the, you know, I was raised to be independent. So before I go and ask someone, I try to find out for myself. So I go to the site to figure out what I need to do for taxes. This was right when HMRC was transitioning fully into gov.uk. But I figure out that maybe I need to do this self-assessment. I go there, and there is the questionnaire. And gov.uk does a great job, as I said, of placemaking. They tell you where you are, how many steps, etc. They give you a nice summary. But the first question is, what's your work status? Am I fully employed, or am I the director of a company? Because my business card says that I'm a director, but am I the director of a company in this context? And I could not find an answer. So I was stuck on this until the following day I asked our financial officer and said, oh no, vanity titles don't count, don't worry, you're not a director of the company. Great, I can go on with the form. Claiming expenses from employment. In the States, if you're employed, even if you are fully employed and not a freelancer, you can claim certain expenses as related to your business. So say you have to dress up in smart clothes, you can claim dry cleaning as a business expense. You know, there are all these things. Again, here, am I claiming expenses? Am I not claiming expenses? What about travel to and from the office? I don't know. And my uncertainty as I go on in this process grows because I have no way of finding out the information. So in a way, I'm a little stuck like the lamplighter. So I did what I knew how to do. You know, I said, well, maybe there is an old PDF laying somewhere with the instructions spelled out for those like me that know. And had I found that PDF, I would have gladly reverted or retreated into the safety of something that I was familiar with. Now, there is, so did it make me unhappy? It didn't make me unhappy per se, but I felt anxious. Would I have felt happier if I had had the information? Maybe, I don't know. I hesitate to use happiness and unhappiness as definers because my whole point is that you cannot generate those emotions. But I would have felt much better if I had been able to find that information by myself. Now, there is an interesting, while I was preparing for this talk, I found something really interesting on the web. There is this Italian researcher, Silvia Neretti, who did her master thesis on happiness. And she argues that unhappiness is the result of a specific context. So unhappiness is not a generalized feeling. And her whole master thesis is about this book that you see here, The Unhappiness Repair. That's the title of her master thesis, where she says that because unhappiness is situational and tied to a context, if you change the context, then, happiness is made, right? So you analyze and modify the interactions between people and information systems, and once you fix that, happiness is there. Now, if that were true, she'd be an idiot not to have bottled that up and sold it and become rich, because if I had found a solution that was that simple, that worked, I would have made pills, red pills, blue pills, bottles, sold them, made a fortune, and bought an island like this, where I could retreat and be rich and just do nothing and enjoy my family and my friends, and everybody could come visit because I had also a pilot who would, but no Wi-Fi. So I would be terribly bored, without the internet, without technology. The point is, even if I were super wealthy, even if I could afford to do nothing but look at this all day, assume there aren't sharks and there is Wi-Fi, would this make me happy? I think, knowing myself, that yes, maybe for a month would be, oh my God, I'm in paradise. I would be on Facebook saying, I'm so happy, my life is so good. But the point is, I would get bored, because this kind of life would have no sense of purpose, no sense of meaning. What is the outcome from this? A tan? Great, I can go on vacation in Greece, I tan really easily. Where is the meaning in this? And in the book, this sense of meaning, which is extremely important, is conveyed, and the importance of meaning is conveyed by other characters that the little prince meets on his travels through the asteroids. Meaning is subjective. I cannot, you cannot, through your work, create meaning for anybody, but you can help them by generating environments where meaning can be found. Each person's individual meaning can be found. So in the book, meaning for these characters is pretty absolute. So the king derives his meaning from being obeyed. The vain man derives his meaning or validation from being adulated. The businessman loses sight of the stars, but the fact of counting them makes him feel really important. And this is because there is a thing called subjective validation or personal validation effect. When you buy a diamond, it's worse than buying a car. The second you're out of the jewelry store, the value drops and hits rock bottom. Because if all these diamonds went back on the market, the price would go down. It would collapse. As I said, we have tremendous power. With power comes a whole lot of responsibility. The things we make, by giving information, creating meaning, and creating connections, generate outcomes. These outcomes can be good or bad. And sometimes the outcomes are just unleashing creativity. In the book, the author, the little prince, wants a lamb, a sheep. The author draws sheep, and they are all, kind of like orked. None is right. Finally, he draws a box and says, hey, the sheep, your sheep, the one you want, is in the box. Go find it. And the little prince is happy because he created his own image of the real sheep. Sometimes that's the only outcome. And to wrap it up, I have one last question. Does this make you happy? And that's it.